One. Hello and welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. We're back. Hasn't been that long, I don't think, couple of weeks, which is nice. We're a bit of a roll at the minute, which is not usual for us in the winter months, but it is always good to be back. And of course, I've got the Bert to my Ernie. I think that's the right way around. Is Bert the grumpy one? I have Neil Rushton with me, who is my co-host. He always likes the analogies with the duos in the world. I do apologise to start off with if you can hear my dog. I am dog sitting my mum's dog, and my dog is just a nightmare with other dogs. So if you hear a barking, I do apologise. So today's guest is a friend of both mine and Neil's, who we met up with a few months ago in Glastonbury and had a really wonderful evening in the Georgian Pilgrim.
Hey.
Um, way one of our favourite places. We've got Elona Woods. So hello, Elona. How are you doing?
I am okay. I'm very well today. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we were just chatting. I'll say hello to Neil, and then I'm gonna start us off. So hi, Neil.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks for that
That's it.
warm
Just hi.
welcome.
You're
Hi,
always
Neil.
warmly welcome. We're going to start off because we were chatting just before we started recording about the way of the fairies. I think is probably the best way to put it, isn't it? And you were saying that you'd had a very strange, not so great day. Do you mind just kicking us off with your day? Because it's really interesting.
You said to me, "Are you okay?" And the answer is, I'm okay now. But I wasn't earlier on today because I woke up, I had loads to do. I wanted to finish off a book, couldn't do it. And then I decided I've run out of coffee. I'm going to go to the shop quickly and go and grab some coffee. And when I got outside, got a flat tire. Can't move, can't do anything. So I had to call the AA. I called up the garage that fixed the tire, and they told me that I had to get down there and fit the wheel. And I'm like, I bake cakes and cook. I don't do stuff like that. So, good luck. So I called the AA, they came out. And while I was waiting for them to come, I had loads of homeopathic remedies and herbal blends to get out, books to post out. And as I was making the remedies, I couldn't find a specific one. And I had it just a day or two before, and I thought, where's it gone? Because I've got cupboards and cupboards full of remedies and herbs and all sorts of potions going on in my home. And then I just thought, I can't keep looking for this. So I had to phone up the pharmacy and say, look, can you send me another one? And we had a giggle about my thing going missing. So I went over to the garage, who then looked at my tire and told me that the problem with my car was actually a me problem and it wasn't a them problem, which was number one. But fine, we've got it resolved. I went home and I was just putting everything together, put on a show on fairies, was just having a look at different things. And then all of a sudden, one of the ones that was I was meant to mention wasn't on my list of fairies. And something just said, just go outside, ground your energy, sort yourself out. You've got to meet, Kate and Neil soon. So I go outside and then I thought, these fairies, those particular ones, they're benevolent, but they're also mischievous. So are they upset with me because I didn't put them on my list? And now that I've put them on my list, are they all right now? Like, are we good? So then my body went cold. And I said, if it is you and you are being naughty, give me a sign. And the sign that I would like is, where is my remedy? So I went into my front room. And then I went into the space where I have all my remedies and I opened up a specific drawer and there it was. Mix 36 that I'd been running around looking for, thinking I was going absolutely bonkers. And it was because I had forgotten this particular fairy off my list.
That's
It does
brilliant.
happen.
That's typical behaviour for the fairies. Very, there's a million motifs of them being mischievous, but also actually, if you ask nicely, well, we might do something for you. And that sounds like a perfect example of it. And, not a coincidence that you're talking to Kate and I. I mean, we're going to be talking about more than the fairies, but, Hare and the Hawthorn is mostly about fairies. And you're talking to us about that today. All of this has happened to you. And they're probably thinking, right, we'll give her a message. We'll mess her up to begin with and then say, actually, we're not all bad.
Oh, they're not all bad, I'm representing Africa today, we're here and we will
Mhm.
speak about those that are there that are normally benevolent. And I just don't steal my sweet corn because that's one of their favorite foods. I've only got good now, and yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
well. Before we go on to that, I'm looking forward to hearing about that. But we'll go into that. Perhaps, I mean, people who don't know you, and Kate and I didn't know you before the middle of October this year, when, as Kate says, we met up in the George and Pilgrim in Glastonbury, which was a fantastic night. I've seen you on another podcast with Sarah, I think, Sarah Mondini, where you were saying, I don't go out much, don't socialize that much. And yeah, that struck a chord with me because I don't. I'm a real miserable, old, unsociable person. And but nights like that, when you're with like-minded people, and it's special, isn't it? You suddenly feel a specialness about those people's consciousness in one space. And it has to be said that as with so many other people, including Kate and I, it's Thomas Sheridan who brought us together, because without Thomas Sheridan, we probably would never have met. And he's a linchpin, isn't he, in the community. Okay, Thomas. But so we met up, and I learned a lot about you and from you on that evening and the next day at the conference. But for the people who are unaware of you and what you do, you can you just sort of outline um, what you're really interested in? And I mean, you've already talked about herbalism and your remedies. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and link that into the homeopathic homeopathic stuff you do? Because that's a big part of who you are, isn't it? Could you just go for that, Elona?
So, where did it start? It started about 20 years ago, actually. So, I've been doing what I'm doing for about 20 years, but I've been more gathering knowledge and reading books and doing weird stuff. And before I do any of the stuff that I did, before I do any of, before I did any of the stuff that I do now, I was a financial consultant. I worked in finance. I was in, did all of that. And something within just said, no, this is not your way. Went to Glastonbury and I met a wonderful woman called Eileen. She looked at me, pulled my cards, absolute disaster. And she said, whatever it is that you're doing, that's wrong. You should be doing this. And I laughed my head off because I was earning a load of money. I was the most miserable person that you could ever meet because it was boring day in, day out, no creativity. And yeah, there's nothing but the rent going on. So I started having dreams, and the dreams were showing me that I was going to lose my job. And then I got a call the next day in the office, and she said to me, Elona, can I have a word with you, please? And I said to her in front of the whole office, when do you need me to go? And her mouth dropped. And then after that period, I'd already been reading tarot, and I'd met a woman that had shown me. I bought a deck and she said that you'd probably be really good at this. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Wasn't really into it that much. And then I bought the deck. And then one day she asked me to give her a reading. And I've got these 78 cards in front of me. And they were Tatiana cards. They weren't even, the ones that people would normally use today. And they had basically nothing on them. But I learned how to read them anyway. It was like something tuned into that. And when I was giving her that reading, the woman talked to me to death. And I just zoned out, and all of a sudden the cards came alive. And then I learned how to read tarot that way, which then led on to palmistry, which then led on to astrology. And I tried different healing techniques that just didn't work for me in the end, hands-on healing and stuff. It just didn't feel right for me. And then about 10 years into that journey, something said that there's more that you should be doing, and I didn't know what it was. So I felt a bit sad about it all, and I just didn't work, just couldn't be bothered. And I used to go to Kew Gardens every single day and just go and sit in the gardens, go to Whole Foods, buy some really good food, and just sit with the plants and just say to them, just whatever it is that I'm meant to be doing, just show me. I got really ill. I've mentioned this on Sarah's podcast. I got really, really ill. I did a cleanse from online with somebody that wasn't really trained in that background. And when I broke the fast of that cleanse, because I didn't eat for about 3 months, all I did was juice fast. And then I ended up with loads of parasites. It was really bad. Went to a homeopath, said to them that something doesn't feel right. They hooked me up to a machine and they gave me these powder remedies for 4 weeks. I think it was Nux vomica. So I was so grumpy. I went to, I asked them about what they were doing because it looked quite fascinating. And they gave me a number to contact where they'd learnt. So I went to Greece, Santorini, Mount Hero, I went up to the top of that and I saw all of these ancient sites, like they were like almost plaques of people that had been there from different dynasties, so Greek, Roman. And when I was up there, I just said to them to show me what it is that I'm meant to be doing. Please just help me. And then when I got back to the hotel, I opened up a book and a bit of paper fell out, and it was the number of the homeopathic college. And that's when I knew. And then when I went there and I was learning how to do what I was doing, we were taught what we learned through with folklore. It came with a background of folklore of the planets, of the different mythical creatures, of everything. And then I realized, oh, I could align or incorporate tarot, I can incorporate astrology, I can incorporate herbalism, and then we've got a massive picture of different sciences that you can use together. And this is how I ended up doing this kind of stuff. And then I've always had a fascination with myths and legends and ancient cultures. And having a lots of different ancestry, I researched all of them, or most of the ones that I could. I'm still learning now because every day we're evolving, right? And it all ties in again. And it's learning the old ways and bringing it into now, all the bits that work for now, as we are the emergent folklore.
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean that massively strikes a chord with me, and I'm sure it did with Sarah as well about, you know, I had a very similar moment where it was like life is not working, and you throw up your cards and you say, well, what do you want of me? What is it? And you start off on one path and then it takes you down another and another and another till the point where you have that realization that actually it's all interconnected. There's no separation from it, and everything that you've learned and everything that you come to understand. And it does seem to be from that quarter of ancient knowledge as opposed to anything from modernity. So, your imagery within in tarot tying into being intuitive with working with herbs and medicines, ancient medicines and that kind of thing. And it is so nice to hear other people who listen to their calling because it's not easy, is it? It's not an easy thing.
No, no.
It's you kind of think, oh, well, what's going to happen? Everything that you know has to be destroyed, and especially because it's almost a rebirth out of corporate modernity as well, isn't it? Usually that it kind of flourishes out of, and you just have to hang on for dear life for a while, don't you, before it all kind of transpires. So, you were saying about mythology and that kind of tying in the folklore and learning the folklore with herbalism is so important in the fact that it helped me learn about plants. When you learn the folklore behind them, um, things like Eye of Newt and whatever that get embroiled in sort of witchcraft, and it doesn't mean that it's actually a herb that they're talking about. So, in terms of the mythology, that then ties into, and I'm going to bring us back round to the fairies because I'm going to be fascinated by this bit. So the fairy element of it, when we were quite excited when you said that you'd like to talk about a specific fairy because it's something that I know nothing about. Now you're particularly drawn to African fairies, aren't you? And that kind of background and mythology. I wouldn't even know where to start. Where do you start on your research of that?
Reading books. There's one book that I really liked called Of Spirit and the Water by
Mhm.
Malidoma Soma and Malidome. If I've said it wrong, please forgive me. That book's really, really good. And then there's another one called Indaba My Children by Mutwa Credo.
Mhm.
And do you know what's really strange? When I met you guys, I had a kind of feeling of the fairies and it was there, but there was something both of your energy fields that kind of spun me open. And that's what happens when you meet people that have a specific interest in certain things. It
Mhm.
awakens something within you that was dormant, it was there, but you weren't really looking at it. And since I've met you, I've been really looking at that. So thank you so much for that. It feels like a real, amazing, energetic, just feeling. And I went down that pathway with looking at what they did. There's different ones that work with different herbs. You've got benevolent, you've also got malevolent. It's no real difference to here. And because I've got ancestry from here, I've learned more about the ones from this land than I have there. But the more I'm learning about the ones that are of that part of the world, the more it's almost like consciousness is awakening for me in that way. And it's like I'm being more bestowed with knowledge and wisdom that I wouldn't have been able to see without looking there.
So have you found massive differences and massive similarities between the fairy folklore of the UK and Europe and the fairy folklore of Africa, or is there distinct differences between the two?
I think some of the fairies here are more malevolent
Hmm.
from what I've been shown, but there are some that are really good, and I'm not going to take that away. I find that in Africa there are more benevolent ones. So, for instance, we've got the Aziza, and this was found in West Dahomey. And they are benevolent spirits, but they're more of nature and of the forest. And if you're out on a hunt and you're going to look for something, and you've got a group of people together, they will help you find whatever it is that you need to find. Or if there's a sickness and people aren't able to connect to find out what herbs to use, they'll help you to be able to do that. So they're not mean fairies, so to speak, and they've got African features. They've got the wings as well. They're really cute. They're about the same size as the ones that we've got here. And yeah, they're really, really good. And they teach humans about herbs. They teach them the way to do things. They're almost like gatekeepers. And that's how I almost see you guys as almost gatekeepers, to something more if for those that are ready to see that.
Mm.
So
And
that's interesting.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
just quickly, they live in anthills and cotton farms. And
Yeah.
I found it really
Oh,
interesting. Yeah, they like that. And the other thing with them as well is that they coexist with the Igba Iwase. I can't say it. And these were the fairies of the sacred stones, which would impart sacred knowledge to humans.
wow. Wow.
That's I mean the comparisons are pretty clear there, aren't they? About for say that living in or under ant hills, and that sounds pretty similar to the mounds, the burial mounds or natural mounds that fairies are known to inhabit in certainly Britain and Ireland, and there's that underground quality to it, which is very interesting. Is there anything about them that connects them with the dead? Because obviously there's you were talking about them as nature spirits, and there's there's not an argument, but a lot of debate maybe about are fairies nature spirits? Are they the same thing? I think they're one and the same thing. There's no, if a nature spirit has all the similarities of other types of fairy types, but the and so that's interesting that you immediately connect African fairy type entities as nature spirits. That's interesting. And but you haven't come across any kind of legends or mythology that connects them directly with the dead, because that's certainly the case in this country and certainly Ireland.
Not those ones, no. They may
No,
be. Maybe it's something I've not come across yet. These ones are more custodians of this realm and the natural world. The ones that I would say are more of the dead are the Iloko, and these are inhabited by human spirits. And what these ones do, these are the spirits that never quite either were disconnected from their ancestors or had a really troublesome time on earth and weren't able to ascend into higher realms. And where these ones would live is that they would live in tree stumps. And I often wonder with trees that look almost human and have maybe got a bit missing in the middle, what's kind of going on there, what's living there. And after that, what would happen with them is that they would pull you into wherever they were with bells. So their sound was bells, whereas with the Aziza, they were more with nice and natural music. But the way that you would counteract the Iloko would be with your own talisman. And this is where mythology comes in because apotropaic magic probably would work really, really well for that.
Mm. It sounds like that's almost akin to the notions of purgatory. So when spirits of the dead get trapped for whatever reason, they can't move on. They get trapped in this band where they're neither earthbound nor can they move on into heaven or nirvana or wherever they need to go. And that again is definitely a theme that runs through fairy folklore within
But
Europe,
what
doesn't it?
well, what you've just exactly what you've just been describing, Alona. If you'd have left off the names and we didn't know you were describing African fairies, you could have been describing motifs from anywhere in Europe or Britain and Ireland. The correlations are definitely there. So on the back of on the back of that, I'll ask you an unanswerable question. Sorry about this, but what do you think the fairies are? Because you're talking about, nature spirits, um, perhaps non-material entities that can interface with our material reality when the times are right, when people's consciousness are in such a state or whatever. And they seem to, in all cultures, seem to have been around for a very long time. And so, do you think these fairy type entities exist in a standalone reality and can interact with ours in specific moments? Or do you think they are perhaps a natural part of human consciousness that become manifest again when the time is right? What do you think? Sorry, that's a massive question. I don't expect a decisive answer, but what do you think?
See, my perception of it would be that that in itself is its own dimension. Yeah, I do feel that they live in their own realm and we can interact with that realm. Um, the reason why I say that in Burkina Faso, they have something called the Contemple, and they're also little people that live in a different realm. The book of Spirit and of Water was absolutely fascinating because when the child in that book was really young, he was chasing a rabbit because he wanted to hurt the rabbit. So the rabbit took him somewhere in the forest while his mum was collecting water. And while she was collecting the water, all of a sudden the rabbit took him off into another frequency, he said. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came a little man with white hair and he said to him, "What are you doing? Why are you hurting this rabbit?" And he had an interaction with this small being and he ran out of the forest and he said to his mum, "Mum, I saw a little man." And she said, "Please don't tell the people in the tribe because it means that they will know that you have access to the other worlds." Okay. Now, when he got older, he got shipped off and he had to go through some kind of colonialism back then. He had to learn Christian ways of doing things. And then he went back home after that. But then at around 12 years old in Africa, and this is of the Dagara tribe, you have to go through a passage of rites, and there's lots of different things that you need to do. So, first, you need to learn how to see in nature. The other one you need to do is learn how to be in all realities. We've been pigeonholed to believe that this is the only one, but I believe that there is more than one dimension, and the fairies exist in another dimension. And on his last trial, what he had to do was go into a cave, and caves and fairies and mythological creatures and cryptids, they all go hand in hand.
Mhm.
So he had to get down on his hands and knees and crawl through this passage, and it was so small he wanted to scream. And then when he got to the other side, he realized that what was dark and the tunnel was narrowing as he went through, it was almost to the point where he couldn't get through. He was in another world and it opened up, and there was a whole other dimension in existence for him. And when he was there were certain things that he had to do. He had to understand that the crocodile that he threw the stick at was actually one of the gatekeepers and didn't really like him because he'd been so rude to it. The rabbit had a go at him and it was off of its own back. He didn't realize the rabbit could talk. And then when he was in there, they said to him that now you've broken through this kind of perception of reality into this perception of reality, which is another dimension. They showed him his past lives and they showed him who he was. And he never actually saw them there, but he experienced it. And this is the thing with these kind of dimensional entities, is what I will call them. It's an experience. So people can tell you about them and it sounds all wonderful, but until you experience something, you don't really have a clue. And it took us back to the beginning of the book, which I'm not going to go into because I want you to buy it because it's fantastic. And it showed him that one of the people that they spoke about right at the beginning was somebody that he actually knew. And it was all his lives were interconnected. And I feel in Africa that those are the gatekeepers, those beings are the gatekeepers of knowing for some tribes what we're here to do.
That's absolutely fascinating. The first thing that I'm thinking of you when you're describing that rite of passage, um, would those peoples, is it Burkina Faso?
Yeah.
Would they have thought of that as a shamanic type initiation? Would they, are they a shamanic people?
Yeah, and the boys would be prepubescent ages, and that's when all the hormones are rushing, everything's going crazy. And if you notice in this country, where people have almost lost their ancestral ways, this is when boys start going off the rails. They get them before they get there, and they open them up to all dimensions. Because what they're saying is, if you know that there's more than just this, you're open to the planet of all possibilities.
I
Yes,
think that
and
that can I just stop you on that
go
because
go ahead.
I saw something the other day and it really clicked and resonated with me. I used to be a teacher, and one of the things with boys of that age that you get and girls of that age is they say almost offhand that they want to die. You know, I hate this life. I want to die. I don't want to be here. And I saw somebody talk about it in a context of ancient ancestral paganism, and they were saying that we have taken away their right to die as a child, to be born as a man or born as a woman. So we're not going through these rites of passage anymore, and we are literally stopping them from rebirthing comfortably. You know, those rites of passage and being opened up, it's almost like, going through that tunnel, going into that other dimension. That's the dimension probably of the point of death, and then whatever's beyond. But they experience it and leave behind their child. And that motif absolutely fascinates me.
You just made me go cold, and it's good cold. Like, oh my gosh, that's just really hit something. And that's
Mm,
what he says. He says that he felt like he went through a metaphorical death, and all
yeah,
those thoughts that were chattering because he wanted to just die, they stopped. And he found a new purpose in life. He found
yeah,
something that aligned him more with who he was always meant to be because he knew who he was. And over
yes,
here, they're being taught who to be. So that's where the difference is. But those trials that they go through in Africa, they're not without. Some kids don't come back.
yeah,
They get
yeah.
lost in those dimensions. They stay there. They don't come back. You have to be mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually aligned. Those four bodies need to be in alignment.
Mm, definitely. Sorry, I interrupted you there, Neil. I got excited.
No, that's good. I just wanted you to repeat the name of the book because I think that people will be quite interested. I'm definitely quite interested in it. What's the author and the name of the book?
Of Spirit and of Water by Malidoma Some.
That's brilliant. That sounds absolutely fascinating because it has to be said that I am guilty of being a bit British Irish centric when it comes to fairies. I just simply, and maybe European to a certain, I just simply have never investigated properly African, South American, Asian fairies. I know they're prevalent. I know they're everywhere. And what you've been talking about is very interesting in that the correlations between, all different cultures, all different peoples, and yet these whatever you want to call them, interdimensional beings, um, you know, whatever term you want to put onto them, they all seem to have very similar characteristics. Obviously, they bind themselves to various cultural attributes, but the similarities are incredible. And you bringing in the whole thing about potential shamanic rites of passage, uh, that's important as well because all shamans will have contact with non-human intelligent entities. And however they're doing it, whether they're taking a drug, whether they're doing it through dance, through ritual, or going into a dark cave, they will have contact with those type of entities. And to my mind, uh, those entities are available to all of us. You don't have to be an African or South American shaman with 20 years of training to meet them. Sometimes your state of consciousness will allow you to come into contact with them. And I know that because it's happened to me, which is again coming back to your point about that gnosis, the knowing, direct knowledge. It can't be taken away from you. The last podcast that Kate and I did, we talked about our own experiences and how it's been life-changing for us because exactly what you're saying. It's as soon as you know that there are what you call supernatural entities able to interact with you, your worldview changes. It can't not change. It has to change. Even you might try to rationalize it away as much as you can, but if it's happened to you, boom. Have you had any direct encounters with what you might call, I don't know, any type of supernatural entity?
Well, I was running in Richmond Park one day and it was mushroom season. So I
And after you've taken a load of psilocybin mushrooms, sure enough.
no, I said to the fairies there, like, please, can you show me some mushrooms? Like, I want to have a good time. And this is about 10 years ago. I wasn't specific about what mushrooms though. So I was running and all of a sudden I saw some really fat ones. And in my head, I heard, there you go. You weren't specific. So this is what you get. And I got some really short, fat mushrooms and I could feel them. I can sense them. Have I seen them? Not per se, but I'm more of a feeler, sentient kind of person. And I'm able to tune in that way. Like today when I felt the yumbos is what these ones were called, that are still African spirits. Well, they're African fairies, but they've got silver hair and they've got really light skin and they love food. And if you don't really acknowledge them, that they can be mischievous. But I felt that today and I knew it was there because my whole body went cold, but it wasn't in a negative way. It was actually in a really kind of, getting it now, you get it. And then I
Mhm.
told my 12-year-old son what happened, and he said, oh, so you can hear them now, can you, Mum? And I was like, okay, thanks.
But it's about that listening and taking that time, isn't it? And it's when we take that time just to, it doesn't take a lot to tune in, um, that you think, okay, there's been perhaps quite a lot of experiences that I've had in the past now that I can look back on and think, was I being nudged by something? Was my energetic being sort of um being sort of rattled in a certain scenario? Yeah, I mean, Neil preempted me on that. In terms of not so much fairies, but I know that when you go into this kind of implosion, like you talked about going from your corporate job into the world of the weird, if you like, that kind of point, a lot of people do experience some really outrageously weird things. As part of that journey with it, I mean, it's mind blowing anyway, isn't it? When you start sort of working and dealing with those things, and the synchronicities are amazing. Is there anything in that time that you would now count as a strange phenomenon that you just thought that was just very weird, not necessarily fairy, but just a weird experience?
Had loads. Once you start looking at that world, it starts looking at you. But you've
Mm-hmm.
also learned to balance out the light and the dark of that because there's two sides of the coin. And in Africa, what they would say when they allow people to go over to that realm to have a look at incarnation and the way that it works, there's an orb and it's got two worms in there. And one worm is good and one worm is bad. But they're both are needed to balance each other out in this realm so that we both learn how to grow. Um, but one of the strangest situations that I've ever had that I can think of was when I was in Ghana and I was in the garage with my kid's dad at that point, and all of a sudden I could feel my chest opening. It was like something, but it was my energetic field. So I stood there and I started laughing and I just said out loud, whatever that is that's trying to enter my body, it really isn't that kind of party. And all of a sudden it just stopped and I felt it leave. You know, I've had that. And there was one time I was on the Badi beach in Ghana, and this little, I don't even know what it was. I can't describe it. It was not, it's about 2 feet tall. It had a black leotard on, and it didn't look young, but it wasn't really old. And it didn't have breasts, it didn't have a penis. You'd expect to see something in a leotard. It had none of that, but it was dancing. And I was having my nails done on the beach. And I don't even know why I did that, but it taught me a lesson. And she clipped my nails. She made them look very pretty. It was really wonderful. And then when I got into the car, something didn't feel right. So I said to my kid's dad, I, I don't feel very well. And he said, what's the matter with you? And I don't know. And I don't really get sick. But all of a sudden, I'm nauseous and something's not right. And then we went out to go to internet cafe because you didn't have internet readily back then. And I wanted to go on MySpace to tell my friends that I'd landed safe because Facebook wasn't available then. And as I was typing on MySpace, I still felt really ill. And he came out and said to me, "We've got to go." And I just said to him, "Look, I'm just messaging my friends, I'll be out." And he said it again. And I don't like being told what to do. I'm quite feral. So I just said to him, "I'll be out in the car in a minute." So something then said as he was walking out, "Get out now." So I
Mhm.
left. And as I left and got in the car, he said to me, "Where is your head at?" I said, "It never left the beach." So whoever took my toenail clippings was obviously doing something.
Mm.
And I think that that little thing, I don't know what it was, had done something as well. And we were chased by armed robbers that day, which then ended up getting stuck in Ghana, the streets. The drains are open, and we took a sharp turn when they weren't expecting it, and they got stuck in the drain. So we ended up going home, and they had to do all sorts of different things to get whatever was bothering me out. And then I just said to him the next day that I felt like something had entered me, like I didn't feel okay. And it taught me, like, you've got to be careful who does your hair. You need to be careful where you leave your nails. And these are all different things that they would use in ancient cultures to
Yeah.
harm others. So it taught me that kind of darkness. But on the other side of it, it also taught me to access more light. So
Yeah,
there's that.
there's as much power in the light as there is the darkness, and I don't think you can comprehend that until you've actually touched upon the dark, the darks come to you, or um that's fascinating because it almost sounds like what you saw on the beach was some kind of witch's familiar, which is it's another energy or entity that we've discussed in the past of whether that fits into the fairy realm, whether these things, because oftentimes witches were said to have fairy familiars that they would send out into the world. So it does sound like that. Somebody said to me years ago about nail clippings. And I mean, this is many, many years ago, and they burnt all their nail clippings. They would never chuck them in the bin, they would burn them for fear of anybody else getting hold of them. And I remember feeling like it was such a strange thing. And it's not until years later that I'm totally with you. I'm very cautious because it's energetically you. It's a piece of you that's, energetically can be taken and used by somebody else. But that's fascinating. That is absolutely
That
fascinating.
that is, I've never come across the nail clippings, but there are several motifs in fairy folklore about fairies cutting your hair and
Mm.
taking your hair, the big pieces of hair that they've cut, and taking them away and either doing good for you, depending on the story. Is the person a good person? Are they going to help you, or are they going to teach you a lesson? And they've taken a bit of your power away from you by taking your hair. I can't think of anything else in the folklore apart from hair. Definitely not nail clippings. That's a new one on me, but it's the
Teeth,
same. It's the same concept,
teeth,
isn't it? It's the same concept.
Teeth as
teeth.
well.
We've got the tooth. Yeah, we've got the tooth
Teeth.
fairy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. Tooth fairy's not a nice being, but
No.
we'll talk about that another day. We'll talk about the tooth fairy another day. I want to get on to I need to order a copy of your book. Can you talk through I've seen it all over the net, and I've seen on social media people who've bought it and are chatting about it and saying how lovely it is, and blah, blah. Talk us through your new book.
That was a story and a half. I'll sigh now because when you start, you're getting into it now. Listen, you'll
Come
get
on.
buckle up, Dorothy. That's all I'm going to say.
I love it.
Because you start off with one concept, but I think books write themselves. I think that
Mm.
you have ideas, but if you really let go, which I was able to do with classical music, I used to listen to classical music and it just take me somewhere else. And even the concept of the book is about health, it's about myths and legends, it's about astrology. I go into quantum physics. I talk about lots of different things about our now and just the way that things seem to be kind of being guided down one way. But then I also go into the fact that there's also other ways that we can connect to, that we can work with. And when I was writing that book, there were some points in that I remember I'd go to sleep at night and I didn't know what I'd need to write next. I'd wake up at about 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd start typing, but I'd be still asleep, not knowing what I was writing. And when I woke up and I'd read it, it was exactly what I needed. there was just synchronicities that happened with that book was absolutely off the chain. And when I was writing it as well, I was taking homeopathic remedies. And the one that I took that really got the messages going was tuberculinum. And that's all about it shows you where you're wasting your true expression. And as soon as I took that, it was like a gut punch, and I was just typing like crazy. And I just got it out there. So the book really, for me, is just different modalities of different ways that people can maybe find their way, because there isn't just one way. It's not, we don't live in that system. We're all individual. We've all got different gifts and talents and etc., etc. So it's just different ways that really people can connect back to themselves, incorporating the myths and legends, because I think that that speaks to the mythological mind of man, and we're all connected by that.
Yeah, it is. It's symbolism, isn't it? It's motifs and symbolism. And even if we don't feel like we have a true grasp or understanding of it, they resonate throughout, don't they? And as we've been talking about, resonate across continents as well, those themes and motifs. Um, we are all human beings having a human experience no matter where we are in the world. So what the title of the book, give everybody the title of the book because it's a brilliant title.
Called The Road to Sovereignty. And it's really about self-governance. It's about the transcendental self. It's about being able to access those points. And also along the journey, there's a lot of different pitfalls that I went through. And as I've done readings for lots of different people, I started to notice patterns and trends of different things that people had also gone through that were very similar to mine. So I wrote about those parts and about herbs and oils and homeopathy and different things, and about how if we're not cleansing ourselves in a good way, that these things can affect our access to these other dimensions and realms. And the cleaner we are within, a certain frequency, the more we can access. But the higher you go and the more you kind of look into that, it becomes a way of life.
Mm.
So yeah, I speak about that. I even speak about some ancient sites within that. And yeah, there's a lot. I went into quite a lot. I don't know what happened, but yeah, that is in that book.
Well, it's always the way, though, isn't it? I mean, we talk about writing, don't we, Neil, and with other writers, and it's like um, you do become a channel. You do start channeling something that's a lot of the time from beyond you. You know, you can have a seed of an idea, and the next thing you know, you've got no idea what you've written in a chapter until you go back and read it. You know, you just go on to this different level of writing. Can I ask
Yeah,
you what you go on? Sorry,
it's
go on,
just
Neil.
you talking about a bigger sort of collective unconscious, that sort of Jungian idea. And I certainly find in my own writing, my dreams will very much influence either what I'm writing or the idea of what I'm writing. I mean, is that the case with you, or is it is your dream world? Does it sort of infiltrate the way you express yourself in waking reality?
Yeah, my dream world's wild. It's like another world. I've seen so much over there. I had wild dreams yesterday, actually, about my mum and my brother when they were younger. And then it was in another place, and I needed to get up into the attic, but I couldn't get up because I'm so short. So I had to find a way up, and I was half an hour late for a teacher course in my dream. And then all of a sudden, I just remember waking up. I got out of bed bolt upright. So I could hear somebody trickling in the toilet. And then all I heard is don't use the toilet in your dream. And when I woke up, I actually needed the toilet. So I don't know what was going on there. But afterwards, when I woke up, I thought I need to get ready for the course. And then I realized I'm not doing any courses right now. So I don't know where I was, but that world feels it's exactly the same. It's no different to this world. It's just another time and space for me.
A
Yes.
lot of people over this last sort of 10 days, 2 weeks, and it's been a theme that I've been talking to lots of different people about and seen it on social media as well. But people have felt very um, disturbed in the night over the last sort of 10 days, 2 weeks. It's been broken sleep, people waking up, the witching hours between 1 and 3, really vivid dreams. I mean, people are having I mean, I have had some heroically vivid and lengthy dreams that I've been able to take myself back into to sort of complete whatever I'm doing. It just seems like, I mean, is that the same for you over the last couple of weeks? Has it been a bit crazy on the dream front?
Yeah, some of them haven't been 100% great. But when I feel my energy coming out of alignment, I do different things to bring it back into alignment. So it could be sound, homeopathy, herbs, whatever.
Hmm.
But you know, when I was really studying, I'm really diving into the African part. I put it on Facebook. I remember a dream about an elephant. I won't go too much into it, but it was just me on an elephant and being shown by somebody about the world and about the spirit world and about this world, and just saying that really, once people start reconnecting back to who they always were, then we can see a very different now. But the elephant didn't mean anything to me until I read this book that I'm reading now, and it was one of the most sacred animals in Africa. No, and so maybe that was a precursor of where I kind of needed to go with it, with my own wisdom and knowledge, but they don't always make sense. It's always good to write them down and date them and then go back and have a look. And you're like, oh, that's what that meant, that dinosaur riding the eagle. You know, it starts to kind of make sense. So that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, yeah, journaling's definitely something that we spoke to Thomas Sheridan about, didn't we? About he journals prolifically about things that go off, and it is all those signs and symbolisms that do feel very weird, and you get that aha moment. Um, yeah, it does make you want to look out and in more in depth, especially with, I mean, we speak a lot about pareidolia, don't we? And things that occur, synchronicities, etc. And they usually tend to be end up being marker points in your life, whether it's just that, it's a stick in the ground and you move on from it and you develop from it, or whether it's actually something that's like, okay, I've got to trust in the universe, and these are the signs that whoever or whatever's giving me that I'm going in the right direction, that these are markers in the ground. So I'm rambling, Anna. I do
No, no,
apologise.
no, no, that's good.
No,
Something
it's
has
really
just
good.
come back to me. You talking, Kate, about, the last 2 weeks and the vivid dreams. That's certainly been the case for me. So some of them are just, as you say, Alona, just off the scale. And you kind of wake up laughing and thinking, what? How have I been there and now I'm here?
I'm
Um,
back.
and 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 and, and please, can I go back?
Exactly.
Um, so what about that's the dream. I think something in the world. This is coming back to astrology, which is another interest of yours. You're a bit too much of a polymath for my liking alone. It makes me sick. These people who just know too many things about too many things. Um, uh, what am I talking about? That's completely lost my thread. No. So your astrology is one of your interests, and I think and I've seen other astrologers talking about this at the end of 2024, and a lot of astrology just kind of goes over my head. Mars in Libra. What I don't understand it, but I recognize that anyone practicing astrology, they're not messing around. They know what they're talking about, and so I'm quite willing to take on their viewpoints and opinions. And there's something happening now, and as Kate and I were talking about before we came on, into next year, early next year, and this is kind of the build up to that. And I've seen so many astrologers saying that, and this is kind of epitomized. We won't talk about this too much, although we can connect UFOs with fairies, of course. But of course, at the moment there is a UFO drone flap, it not just in America, but in this country, in Europe, in China. I saw some incredible videos from China today, with these maneuvering lights in the sky. And we won't go into, is it military? Is it alien? Is it interdimensional? Is it consciousness? Our consciousness creating this,
Yeah.
the bringing it from one reality into our reality? That's not. I'm just bringing this up as an example of the current time we're in. Very, this month and next month. Is there anything? Have you come across any kind of astrological reasons for why this might be?
We've got Mercury retrograde at the moment.
Mm.
That comes in, and I think that ends in 4 days. We've got Pluto that's in Aquarius. There's just loads of different transits right now that are affecting the way that people are thinking, people are being. You've also got to have a look at the changes going on in the world as well, because we're definitely waking up to more. And there's more information coming on at the moment about aliens and about UFOs. People are moving away from the media now. So they're now more focused and pointing on these different aspects of life. So I just think that with the transits as they sit right now, everything's a bit up in the air. I think 2025 is going to be a bit of a crazy year. We've got Neptune going into Aries. We've also got Saturn going into Aries. These are quite auspicious times as well. And some people really like the older planets, some people may not so much. But I think for me, the message for everybody is just stay grounded. Stay as grounded as you possibly can as we go through these crazy times and move it forwards within yourself and point your energy to where you want things to go rather than where things are currently heading in other ways at the moment. It's just about being present and about being here now.
That's excellent
Mm.
advice because certainly on, social media, the way it is these days, I see a lot of people losing their minds over this UFO flap, over politics, over all kind of social issues that, I know social media has always been a little bit like that, but it just seems as though people are losing it. And that 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 advice from you about, just ground yourself, just bring yourself away from it. I've certainly been trying to do that recently with, politics, the UFO phenomenon, which I'm very interested in.
And
But
me too, love it.
sometimes, but you've got to come back and ground yourself. Excellent advice, Elona. Thank you.
That's okay.
And now, right, this is what I want to ask you about biocommunication.
Yeah.
What I was looking through your website the other day and just seeing all the things that
Stalking.
you do, huh? I
You were
wasn't
stalking.
stalking. I was looking at someone's website. Okay, and and biocommunication. Now I kind of get it after reading your description, but it's something I'd never heard. I'd never heard the term of. So just give us a description. What's biocommunication?
So it's a machine that I've got. You put your hands on the machine. It's like a hand cradle, and it measures your galvanic skin responses. And I remember doing it for somebody, and I said to her, "Have you had coconut oil?" Because it came up really big, like quite a big number on the scan. And she said, "Yeah, I brushed my teeth with it this morning." So what it does is it measures everything that's going on in your body. So you can have a look at heavy metals, parasites. You can have a look at all your organs, see how they're functioning, see what's going on with all of that. You can also have a look at emotions that you're not expressing. It will bring it up. When my kids are going through stuff, I'm like, "Oh, why is anger on there?" And they'll be like, "Oh, because somebody at work got on my nerves." And then all the emotions come out, and then you know what to treat. And it will just go into your chakras. It just tells you everything that goes on in your body, different minerals that you're deficient in. It could also be essential oils that may help to raise your vibration. And once you've got a snapshot of what's going on, it gives you then the power to take back control of your health. And that's the way that I work. I'm more of a person that likes to say to somebody, "This is what I see." And sometimes I might use archetypes and tarot. So I'm more use astrology for people's health. I use it more in that way to have a look at what transits are going on and how it's affecting their health, and have a look at in their natal charts to see what plants were born, what planet, no, what plants they can use in accordance to what's going on in their sixth house, maybe their first, because they're the herbs that they'll need throughout their life at different points. And I more work with it that way to have a bigger snapshot of that person to see what needs treating now. So the biocommunication, it gives you a view of what's going on within the body so that you can see what's going on. And then it will also give you options that you can use. So it might say that, you need a detox or an enema or a colonic, or you need liposomal vitamins, and these things will help to bring you back into alignment again. And then I work with that in conjunction with homeopathy and herbs as well.
Brilliant. I get that now. So I had many years ago, I had bioresonancy feedback therapy for stopping smoking. And that was literally like it looked like something out of the Cold War. It was like millions of machines or whatever you, but it picks up those chemical elements in your body through copper balls, basically, that you hold on to, and then reverses them. So it's that first stage, isn't it, of reading those kind of chemical components, I would assume, with biocommunication that they're in your body. That's brilliant. It's a brilliant way to use it to sort of chart out. what are the significant things, because a lot of these things have a knock-on effect, don't they? Sort of parasites have a knock-on effect in every aspect of your biology, of your body, and looking at, what's the first to start healing and eliminating to be able to get to an optimum stage. So it's absolutely fascinating. And the fact that you take it across the board, astronomy wise and herbs is absolutely, and using your tarot as well is just brilliant, because it's intuitive psychic. So you're working with the energetic. And for anybody who is listening to this, and I know we have a kind of a real range of people who listen to our podcast, and we do have some that find it quite difficult to sort of get the perceptions of things like astrology. I always get that, and I'm sure you do too, that yeah, but you can read, your star sign in the paper, and how can that be the same for everybody? And I do say to people, that's the icing on the cake of who you are. You're a whole mix of ingredients that are other planets in other houses. And I was told you're 144,000 years away from somebody having your exact astrological chart. That's how very different we all are. So actually, two people on the planet right now having that same astrology is very rare, if happening at all. So I truly do believe that there is something in it. And for all those people who sniff at woo-woo stuff, I love a bit of woo-woo. I think it's the basis of who we are as humans. Sorry, another ramble.
I don't think anyone watching this channel is too concerned about that. Too much woo-woo. They love it.
Good.
They love it. So as we sort of come to the last 5 minutes, Elona, you need to tell us again about your book. But I mean, the book has just come out, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So give us the title to that again. But that's not all you do, because we just want you to tell us a little about your blog site on Substack, which is I enjoy tremendously. Substack's I don't really use it myself, but there's so many good writers on there, and they've got complete freedom to say whatever you like. There's no censorship or anything. So your blog site, and also you are now doing a podcast of your own. So remind us the name of the book, how we can get it, and tell us a little bit about the blog site and the podcast.
So my book is called The Road to Sovereignty, and that can be found on Lulu. And Substack is my inner musings, I'll call that. So I'll get inspiration from something, or I'll read a book, or something's going on, and I'm like, yeah. And you have to write when you're inspired. So that's when I do that. And so that will go into lots of different things. I talk about water, spirituality, ancestral stuff. And the other thing that you asked me for, it's just left the building. What was it? Sorry.
The
Oh, my
podcast.
podcast. Oh, yeah, The Arcane Mystic. So that's a podcast that I do. Love to have you and Kate on there when you're ready. And so it is about lots of different topics, really, with regards to, I would say, consciousness and working with different people that work with different things. So we've got somebody on there talking about astrology that really goes into more of what's going on in the world. We've got somebody on there talking about runes. We've got the wonderful Thomas Sheridan on there as well. And just Maya West, just lots of different people from different parts of, I would say, the weird worlds that talk about the things that really work for them and that they're really, really good at. And just creativity. And it's about space, really. It's like a community hub, just like this one, where people can come together that may have interests in different things, and we can come together. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And in terms of, because you do offer out your homeopathic remedies and advice and guidance, where can people find you for that?
www.elonawoodshomeopathy.com.
Nice and simple. I love it.
I
Everybody will
it's
remember that one.
if well, even if you don't remember, all you need to do is put Elona Woods into a search engine, as I did a few days ago, and she's number one. Your website is number one, so you can't miss it until someone someone from a tech company finds out what you're up to and censors you.
Ah, forever
I
the
rebuke
optimist
that.
there, Neil.
That's not happening.
I'd say, you've made it. If somebody takes you down, you've made it in the world if that happens.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, and the time has just absolutely whipped by, and I don't feel like we've depth dived into anything. So it'd be lovely to have you back in the new year. I'm going to get a copy of your book and have a real good read of that, and maybe we could sort of squirrel through the pages, all three of us, and go into some depth into your book because it sounds exciting and it sounds like something that the world definitely um, needs in it, definitely. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And hopefully, maybe we can all meet up in Glastonbury again sometime next year. That would be good. I don't know. There's bound to be
or no,
something going on.
before we say that, I have to mention this. So, me and Alona we had a toilet conversation. We weren't in the toilet together, but we were in the bathroom together in Georgian Pilgrim, and I'd briefly said, and it's something that I'd never ever come across anybody else having this, and I feel quite guilty, looking like I do. That I don't like Glastonbury. There is something when I go there, I have only ever been once and I've not been seriously sick. And like from just weird issues like dizziness and feeling out of it. And I don't do drugs. I'm not I'm not the one who does that. Not looking in any other direction. And I said it to you, didn't I, Alona? And you said you have to stop outside of Glastonbury when you're there as well to sort of take that breath and that break from that place. And I was like, "Think," you know, what somebody else say that was bizarre.
I've had it there. It's hit and miss. Sometimes that night when we were all there was absolutely ace. But I think it
Yeah.
was almost like a shielding, a psychic firewall that we created together. So it was like a
Hmm.
really wonderful energy. But there's been times where I've been there and it hasn't been so great. There was once that I went there and I went up to the tour, I came back down again, and when I was in the center, when you just have to get out. I had to get out, and I was ill. I didn't feel very well. I think I even vomited that day. And then when I went home, I just had to just relax and rest because I just felt out of sorts. So
Yeah.
you've got to pick your moments to go there. Um, and I think you just need to be with the right people.
I totally agree because that weekend is the only weekend where I've not only not been sick but felt good all weekend, like really buoyant. Um, yeah, that's something else that next year we'll have to explore because it definitely brings in the whole concept of energy vampires and people draining energy of the land and people miss. I mean, I was grumbling about the misuse of ancient sites earlier with Neil and not go into it right now because I think a lot of people will probably distune from the channel if they actually heard me go off on the rant that I did earlier. But yeah, it'd be interesting to talk about different energies and that kind of thing and how they affect us and how we can safeguard ourselves as well, which would be a really interesting conversation to have with you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on board today.
It's so much fun, and it's really, really lovely to see you both again. And please, let's meet up when the time is right, Sarah,
Yes,
all the crew, bring it all together, and yeah, let's do this.
definitely.
Thanks, Neil.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Alona. And I think the viewers will really appreciate this one. Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay,
Cheers.
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thanks a lot.